That scare ya? No? Why not? Well, maybe that's because just popping up and saying boo is kind of a lazy, boring attempt at horror. But for some reason, dozens of video game developers seem to think that's all they need to do in order to put together a classic horror game.
Hope this is not Chris's blood.
Before we begin, be sure to subscribe to MojoPlays and click on the links in the description to vote on upcoming content. Now, make no mistake, the jump scare is a time-honored tradition in horror games and horror movies. From zombie Rottweilers jumping through the window in the first Resident Evil, to literally anything turning out to be a mimic in 2017's Prey. There have been ghoulies hiding in the bushes waiting to jump out and scare us as long as there have been games trying to scare you, basically. And when done right, a jump scare can be the perfect pants-wetting punchline to a suspenseful, atmospheric build-up. Let's look at a good version of the jump scare as an example, the grabby arms in Resident Evil 2. This moment is totally scripted, yet it somehow manages to startle players even when they know it's coming, thanks to the brilliance of the setup. The tight corridors and fixed camera angle make it so that the ultimate payoff seemingly comes out of nowhere, and the camera angle even tightens when the arms burst through the windows. But this moment isn't frightening exclusively because of how sudden it is. It takes full advantage of building suspense and creating an atmosphere in order to deliver an effective scare, which is why it remains one of the most memorable examples of a jump scare so many years after its release. Sure, even a bad jump scare will make you, well, jump. If you're a human being, anything loud enough or sudden enough will trigger your fight or flight response. That's why developers keep using them. They're an easy way to make a game seem scary without doing anything too hard. But surprise parties are sudden and noisy too. To make a game really scary, it takes more than cheap sudden shocks. A good jump scare is like a carefully choreographed movie scene. You have to know where your player is gonna be, manipulate the way they're feeling, and then spring the trap at just the right time. You have to think about lighting, the soundtrack, the enemy placement to get the most out of the moment. That means it takes a lot of work to set one up. Games take the lazy way out and leave jump scares lying around everywhere hoping the player will just run across them, it's much less effective. Instead of a sudden, terrifying conclusion to a hard-earned build-up, you get wave after wave of disposable enemies who are, ooh, look, this one's not dead either, oh, what are the odds? There's also something to be said about scripted jump scares, which are the same for every player, and emergent jump scares, like in Alien Isolation, which is generally the result of good AI. Those are different every time you play the game. Then there are games like Five Nights at Freddy's, which are made up of practically nothing but jump scares. Sure, it can be fun for a while. It's certainly fun to watch other people react to these kinds of moments. Just ask all of Markiplier's subscribers.
Hi! Oh god damn it! How are you doing?
It definitely gets your adrenaline going the first few times something catches you off guard, but it also means you start to expect them after a while. And for a trope that's based entirely on taking you surprised, that's basically a death sentence. In fact, that's why jump scares are becoming a problem across the whole horror genre. When one game leans too heavily on one thing, it robs it of all its value. But the problem doesn't end when the credits roll. That effect carries over to the next horror game you play. And if that one leans too heavily, maybe on jump scares, it'll follow you to the next one after that, and so on. So these days, horror game lovers have seen them in so many different games that jump scares are the first thing they expect from the games. And as we've covered, there's no faster way to make a jump scare boring than by spoiling the surprise. The result is a whole bunch of games bloated with this one cheap, easy to produce spook. And that leaves less room for more complex, better crafted frights that carefully thought out games can deliver. When developers sit down to get a reaction from their players using as little effort as possible, it means they're not spending time making the next great Silent Hill or Eternal Darkness. And it is for these lasting, damaging reasons that we must say that the jump scare is the worst horror game cliché of all time.
Stay the out!
Thanks for watching MojoPlays. Be sure to subscribe and click on the link in the description below to check out our suggestion page and vote on what content you'd like to see us cover next.